different. Start over. There we go. Hey everybody, just a real quick introduction to this video. This was actually recorded for another channel about a year and a half ago. So that's why you'll see that the garage looks a little bit different. I look a little bit different in it, but I thought it would be a really good thing to put on this channel. It's a really good technical overview of a very specific job, but even if you don't have a 3000 GT VR4, maybe you'll find this useful for something or a project that you're taking on. So enjoy the show. What's up everybody? Welcome back to my home garage here. We're still under some safe at home orders, so we're not doing all of the work at the big garage. Today we are going to be replacing the rear wheel bearings on our 1995 mint condition 3000 GT VR4. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is get these wheels off. Okay guys, and the next step is to take this brake caliper off, and also back here you can see at the end of that extension there is the ABS sensor. So that's a 12, and the bolts to get these off, the two bolts for the caliper, are a 13. Hopefully I can do it with a socket. I might have to go grab a wrench. All right, so the caliper bolts are actually a 14. All right, now we got to get something to hang this caliper off of. All right, so you can see what we did here. I've just got a wire coat hanger going up around the spring, and we can even secure that a little bit tighter there, but we'll tighten that up. And it's just hanging around the caliper just in case it gets loose and falls. It won't yank so hard that it pulls the brake line or damages it, but really it's pretty steady right there for what we're going to be doing. The next step is to get this rotor on. So let me show you what I did here on the video. I sprayed the rotor, the surface kind of right around here, with some good old PB Blaster. And I know someone's going to say, but you put PB Blaster on your brakes. Just clean them before you put it back together. You should probably clean them before you put them back together anyway. Shoot some brake clean on there, wipe it down, you'll be fine. So then I took my dead blow hammer and I just kept the tapping, kept the tapping around until it started to come loose around that surface right there. Now we'll just pull it off. The next step is to take these 4 bolts loose. Now they have a nut on the back and the bolt head over here, so we're probably going to have to do some sort of wrench on one side, ratchet on the other kind of thing to get them loose. And I'm going to go ahead and spray them as well with PB Blaster just to make sure I can kind of get them loose. This car was never in a really rusty area, but it is 25 years old, and I'm not sure that this side has ever been taken apart. I want to interrupt the time lapse just a second to show you guys what I'm doing here. I'm getting my, you can do this with a wrench or a ratchet, but I'm getting my 14mm ratchet on this side, and I've got a 14mm wrench on the back, and the wrench is braced against this trailing arm so that when I go to turn, and you saw me hitting it with the dead blow hammer just to kind of make it go, that's because I'm using a cheap ratchet to do that with, but just to break it loose, and that kind of helps keep everything from spinning. One more thing I want to point out while I'm thinking about it, this stud is loose, so we're going to take a look at that once everything is out. So let me see if I can move you around here. That big boy right there, we're gonna have to use the impact, which is not a big deal. We're gonna have to get in there with the impact and get him loose so that this flange can come off, and then we can work on the whole little stub shaft here is gonna slide out away from the car with everything else attached, and the bearings will be in there. Okay, so that big boy that we looked at up inside the up inside there is a 30. We've got a 30 on our Ryobi impact right here. We're gonna see if we can fit it up in there and bust that boy loose. So the impact does work, but in order for it to work, you're gonna have to put the rotor back on, set the handbrake, and that'll keep the shaft from spinning when you turn on the impact, and you can get that nut off. Okay guys, quick update. I couldn't get the flange off here. So I ran up to Harbor Freight and got a set of 3-jaw pullers, and I've got the 6-inch on there right now, and I'm going to climb underneath and see if I can crank down on that and get that flange. Okay, so what I did to get the last part out, we got the flange off, and now it's still in there. So I used the dead blow hammer around the back and tapped on the end of that stub shaft until it came loose, and now it's starting to slide out a little bit. We need to hit it just a little bit more. All right, so we got the half shaft out, but the bearing that goes up here is still stuck inside there. So we need to get that out. But you can see this one already came off. It shouldn't have done that from just what we were doing. And it's pretty grody up here and underneath. And so I'd say there's a very good chance that that bearing is the one that had been making all the sounds, but we're going to replace both of them, and once we get that guy out, we'll inspect it as well. All right, so the next parts we need to talk about, I already got them out. I'm sorry I didn't video them. This is the inner bearing and also the seal from inside on there. So remember I showed you on the video, we looked down into that hole and you could see the bearing still in there. What I did is I took the 30 socket on a long extension, just fed it in there, and that's a good size to get in on the metal part of that bearing. And I took the dead blow and just gave it a few good taps, popped everything out of the back. Now what we still need to do is get that ABS ring off so we can also get that other bearing off. I still have a feeling that this is the one that was really making all the ruckus. All right, gang, I've brought things into the workbench to give you a little better, clear picture of the pieces that we're looking at. So working from the inside of the car, this would be in towards the differential, these are the pieces that we've taken out. So we have the seal that just keeps dust and crud from getting into the bearings and the stub shaft area. This is the inner bearing, and it spins pretty well. Once we got it cleaned up, there's really not any play or any sounds coming from it. This is the ABS ring, and we're going to reuse this with the other set. And this, I think, is the culprit. This is the outer bearing that's closest to the wheel. And when we spin it, we can feel that it doesn't move smoothly, you know. Don't know if you can hear that on the microphone, but there's an actual little, like, almost like rock grindy sound in there. So we have our new seal, our new inner bearing, we'll reuse the ABS wheel, and our new outer bearing. And these new bearings, they're very tight and a little stiff to turn, but that's okay. They'll loosen up over time, but what they do is move very smoothly. So another trick we're gonna do before we get these installed, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these two in the freezer, let them shrink up just a little bit. That's gonna make them easier to install. Okay guys, I realized when I was going through and editing this video that I missed a really good explanation of what goes on with these bearings and seals and the shaft, putting it all back together. And so what I've done is made a very rough layout of the trailing arm here, and I'm going to show you how the bearings and seals and shaft go together and the sequence that that has to be, because you can't put the whole shaft and everything together outside of the car and have it go back in. So the first thing that you have to do is get the inner bearing and seal put back in. And so the smaller is the inner bearing, and it goes into the trailing arm from the inside of the car. Imagine that the differential is over here, and you have to line it up just right into this cutout. And I used a 27mm impact socket and set it right against there. It's just the right size for that, and just tapped it in using a dead blow, and it'll go in and get right to where it's supposed to be and stop. Then you're going to take the seal and do the same thing. Get it in there, tap, 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 and you'll feel it come to rest right there at sort of the line, the edge of the trailing arm. Then you can put the shaft in from the other side. And so we'll use this breaker bar to represent the shaft. Now outside of the car, you will need to put the outer bearing on, and this little rubbery side there goes towards the inside of it. But that'll go on. Imagine that the hub and the flange and everything is over here. So this will get tapped on, and then your ABS tone ring will slide on to the spot that it's supposed to be, and then you'll feed all of that in through this little cutout section. And see, this is the problem. If you put them all on at first, like if you have this bearing on, it won't be able to fit through that part. So it has to go in, and then you feed the shaft through, and it'll just go right through the inner bearing and the seal, and it'll sit, and this will kind of come to rest right there. The ABS tone ring has plenty of clearance, but this bearing will come to rest, and then you can just tap on the flange and it'll work its way in to where it's supposed to be. Then you can put the nut on the other side and torque it all down. So now we can take this and slide her in there. Once again, I forgot to record video of this part of the job. You'll slide the shaft back in, then put the rotor on and set the handbrake again, and that's going to hold it all in place. Then you'll be able to put the flange on the backside, tap it down with the dead blow hammer, and then put the washer and nut on and tighten it up with the impact. All right, so our shaft is back in, and the nut is snugged back up over here. The nut and the washer go on, and the assembly spins smoothly. Oops. But what we want to do now, before we put it all back together, is look for that green mark that we saw and the green mark here on the CV axle, and make sure that's the way they go back together, because that's how they're balanced from the factory. Now when you're putting these bolts back in, you want to make sure that you put the lock washer on the side with the nut, and then put each one in and start them by hand, then go around and snug them up. Now once again, I did not get good video of the last part of this job, but it's easy enough from here on. All that's left to do is to reinstall the ABS sensor, install the brake caliper, put on the wheel, and tighten the lug nuts. I wish I had been able to get good audio of the roaring noise the bad bearings created at any speed over about 30, but you can use your imagination. Once everything was reassembled, I took the car out for a test drive, and it did great. Guys, once again, thank you so much for watching another one of our videos. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. And below, like and comment on the video and tell us your favorite part or what you liked or what you didn't. That always helps us know what to bring you in future videos. I'm Adam, signing off. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.